Thank you again, Chairman, members of the committee. On behalf of the ACLU of Rhode Island, I'm here to express our organization's very strong support for this legislation. I just want to give a very brief background. Why do we have a bill like this in the first place? And it's because what we consider to be a disastrous United States Supreme Court decision from 1998, 6-3 decision, that held that public school officials had broad discretion to censor the student newspaper. In that case, it dealt with a school newspaper where the students had written some very basic stories analyzing the effect of divorce on children, on students. And the administrators thought that was just too sensitive a subject, a subject that all the students, of course, were dealing with and talking about, censored it. The case went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said it was within the school administrators' rights to censor those types of articles that they had the final say. Since that decision, there are 9 states, including Massachusetts, that have passed laws very similar to this in order to protect student journalists, try to encourage students from participating, as you heard from the previous speakers. The one point I would stress is there's a lot of talk going on these days about returning, restoring, having more civics lessons in the schools, teaching students about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and so forth. And for me, that's really just empty language, empty words. I don't think it means much to be taught all these civics lessons about our founding fathers and the Constitution, and how the students every day see the rights violated in the most basic ways. So you can talk about the First Amendment, you can talk about the Fourth Amendment, but if you see your school newspaper censored every month, if you see drug-sniffing dogs brought into your school every month, the ideals of the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment that you're being taught really don't seem to make sense. So I hope the committee will give favorable consideration of this bill this year and send a very strong message about your interest in protecting the rights of students. Thank you.
Great, Mr. Brown. I look forward to your support of all the amendments this year for the ACLU. Would you draw a distinction between a high school publication and a college publication? I don't know if there's any legal basis for it, but in my mind, it's different to tell the students at CCRI you can't publish something than to tell the students at a high school you can't publish something.
Yes, so the courts have actually split on that. There are some courts that have interpreted this 1998 Supreme Court decision as applying only to secondary schools. Others have said no, the logic also applies to colleges and universities.
Any First Circuit guidance on that yet?
That's a good question. I'm not sure whether the First Circuit has ruled on this issue yet. So it's a legitimate question, but the point I would emphasize is that there are prohibitions and exemptions in this bill as to what as to the authority that school officials do have. So it's not as if it's carte blanche. It doesn't say school officials can't do anything if students start printing newspapers with libelous, obscene material. Those are all exempt, so it's not all or nothing. It's an attempt to recognize that students who are part of the school newspaper, they aren't joining the school newspaper in order to print 4-letter words. So they're to learn journalism, and to the extent that school administrators can crush that, it really undermines the whole point of having a newspaper in the first place.
Thank you. We had a bunch of Representative Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, really just a support for this particular bill, and I'll explain a few reasons why. I can tell you that as a budding journalist, when I was in elementary, junior in high school, I was on the school paper all the way through to graduating undergraduate school. And there were several times when there were articles that we wanted to write, or we wanted to publish, that spoke about whatever the hot topic was of the day, and of course we were censored, which never made any sense to me. It didn't make sense to me when I was in high school. It doesn't make any more sense to me now as I'm a legislator for the state of Rhode Island. The fact of the matter is, especially now more than ever, when we have students that we encourage to register early for the vote, well, how do you expect them to show the maturity to stay current of the different issues that's going on, and at the same time say that we need to shield them, or that the educational institutions need to shield these students, even at the high school age, from what's going on in the world. They can turn on the internet, they can listen to the radio, the news media is all over the place. But I will say that not only as a parent, but as an elected official, that it's very useful for us if we want to know what the millennials are thinking, to read what's going on in the school papers. I will tell you that I seek out copies of the Unfiltered Lens. CCRI is in the city of Warwick, which I've been representing for the last 6 years on city council and now here at the state legislature. And I find the articles to be very crisp. I like the different style of writing that the various student journalists are using. And many times I've taken those articles and shared them with other elected officials at the city and at the state level. So they're a resource to us. Why we would ever want to stop getting information directly from the horse's mouth is beyond me. And for that reason, I'll be supporting this bill. Thank you.